My name is Alan Shocker. I'm going to do the first 20 minutes or so of this 90-minute tutorial. Then I'll turn it over to Matt Walton, who will do some more. And then last section, Julie Ma is going to handle. I want to apologize in advance. We had a little bit of some technical difficulty. So I'm actually sitting here in a conference room, just so you know, if I'm looking over there, Matt is sitting immediately next to me. I'm looking at my laptop. He's got Zoom up on his laptop with chat, and so that's why if you see me look to my left or him look to his right, that's what is going on there. All of our slides in the lower right-hand corner have a little short URL that you can go to. At some point this afternoon, we will post these slides in PDF format to this URL that you see here, which is openondemand.org/gateways24. It's not up there yet, but you'll be able to get that if you kind of write that down. Just remember that, hopefully. You'll see all the slides, specific things in them have different URLs in there. And we are, like I said, monitoring the chat. So as we go through here, feel free to ask questions, raise your hand or in the chat, and we'll stop when we get to a good stopping point on a slide. I do want to mention the Open On Demand. We're just the face of a very large team. You can see here on this slide, there's a lot of organizations that have been involved and are involved with the Open On Demand project. And we've been, over the past decade or so, generously supported by a series of awards from National Science Foundation that allows us to kind of do this work and bring it to you. Okay, so let's kind of talk through what the agenda is going to look like. We're going to, like I said, I'm going to start with the about Open On Demand portion. Matt will then handle the walkthrough and customization, and Julie will end with engaging the project here. Now, there are some names that I recognize and some names I don't recognize in the attendees, which is great. And so for this first 20 minutes or so, when I talk about Open On Demand, some of you might have already seen this and know this stuff. Some of you might be completely new, so I'm trying to cover my bases. Some of you might be researchers or educators that are using On Demand. Some of you might be sysadmins. They're deploying, customizing. We're trying to cover kind of the whole gamut there of stuff. With that said, did we update this, Julie? Is this the new one or not? I can't remember.
I don't actually know about them.
We might have actually forgotten to. These things expire. So Julie, are you there? I mean, you can try going to this. We can't hear you if you're talking.
I am here, and I apologize. I did not update that.
Okay, we're going to skip this, I guess.
Okay.
So, yeah, sorry about that. These things expire after a certain amount of time, and we discovered yesterday that it expired, and we were going to update it. We were going through it. So let's, but feel free to drop into. Oops, feel free to drop into the chat. Just the kind of things that we were going to ask are, do you already know? Are you a complete newbie? Do you know a lot about On Demand already? Do you have it deployed at your center or not? Are you a sysadmin or a researcher or what? Just help us understand a little bit and tailor some of the rest of this. So feel free to kind of just drop some of that stuff into chat as we go on. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Open On Demand, and let's talk about it first from the perspective of if you are a researcher or a client or a user of research computing, why might you care about Open On Demand? And it's pretty simple. It allows you to access your organization's resources, supercomputers, research computing, things like that, from the web, from anywhere on any device. That's really what On Demand's about. It's a web portal interface. You don't have to install any particular clients. It's relatively easy to use. It's really compatible with any device. And to illustrate and demonstrate that, we have a little bit of a catchy little video here I want to show you, showing using On Demand on a variety of devices. So we're going to start off on a laptop. So this is a virtual desktop on a supercomputer via OSC On Demand. Next, cell phone, MATLAB, remote MATLAB on a supercomputer in the hallway. iPad. We've got we're browsing jobs on our Slurm scheduler. hey, an Xbox. We're doing MATLAB on a supercomputer via an Xbox. My Tesla car browser. Beautiful view of downtown Columbus. If you happen to go to the PERC conferences, PERC 25 will be in Columbus next year in July. And then finally, the metaverse. Yep, that's me leaning against a tree outside our building, browsing OSC's on-demand instance in the metaverse. So a little bit tongue in cheek there, but really, when we say any device anywhere, that's really what we're trying to accomplish here is any device anywhere. So let's say that you don't currently have access to Open On Demand, but you want to play around with it. Well, there's a variety of ways you can do that very easily. So the first is the commercial cloud. All three of the major commercial cloud providers have out of the box on-demand virtual HPC clusters deployed. So you go to openondemand.org/AWS, Azure, GCP, and you can, with a few clicks, fire up an instance that has on-demand as the front end. What you're seeing here on the left-hand side is tabbing through various tabs of a Azure on-demand. So again, a few clicks and you're firing up various instances that have file browser, and you see shell, interactive desktop. It even has Grafana in it to see what the performance is on there. So a variety of different things that are happening there. So that's one way that you can do it. Another way is via NSF Access. So if you're not familiar with the NSF Access program, NSF, the U.S. National Science Foundation, funds a lot of very large supercomputing resources around the country. It has for many decades, since the 80s. And in order to facilitate clients utilizing those, they fund this program called Access, which, again, if you go to openondemand.org/access, it'll drop you right in. That basically allows researchers to apply for allocations on these systems. So as you can see here, 11, which is almost all of the NSF Access current resources, actually have on-demand as their interface in there. So you can just go to the openondemand.org/access. I'll drop you in, apply for an allocation, and start using on-demand on any of these resources and whatever you need to accomplish there. Okay, so now let's flip this over to, let's say you're not a researcher or an educator, but rather you're a sysadmin or somehow associated with a research computing center or organization. Well, why would you want to install Open On Demand at your local site? The main reason is because exactly the flip of what I already said. You want to administer remote web access to allow your clients and your users to have a lower barrier to entry to using your resources and really operate and accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. Open On Demand's free, it's open source. There's a huge community behind it, and it's very configurable and flexible. So those are some of the reasons why you might want to consider utilizing. So talking a little bit about the community, we look at this every so often, and in calendar year 2023, we were able to geolocate over 1,600 organizations that utilize or have deployed Open On Demand, 95 countries around the world, as you can see here. Every continent except Antarctica. I'm really trying to get in Antarctica. If you've got in there, I know they got research computing data centers down there. Let me know. But really, it's been deployed, quite, broadly all over the world. If you want to zoom in a little bit on a few of those, you can look at these by different sectors. So there are nonprofit research centers, so children's hospitals, for example, that are using On Demand. International academia, you can see, Canada, Australia, Asia, Europe, lots of international academia. Government. I like to talk a little bit about the government, at least in the U.S. here, because if you look at those icons, you'll see there's kind of two categories in general on there. The first one are some national laboratories. And if you're not very familiar with the U.S. national labs, a lot of them are the Department of Energy and Idaho National Lab in particular, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes. They are responsible. They are the experts in nuclear energy, nuclear physics, everything nuclear in the U.S. Idaho National Laboratory, they lead the way on that. Likewise, if you notice, we've got some Federal Reserve banks. So a variety of Federal Reserve banks here in the U.S. Rely upon open on-demand. So one of the questions that sometimes gets asked, and Matt will talk about this a little bit more in detail later on in the tutorial, is, well, tell us about the security of open on-demand. And somewhat tongue-in-cheek, I like to say, well, we've been audited, and Matt will talk about that, by some external entities such as TrustCI. But more importantly, if the United States experts in nuclear physics and energy and the United States experts in fiscal policy and monetary supply have looked at open on-demand and evaluated it and are running it on their internal systems for their clients, it's probably pretty good. Do your due diligence, ask your questions, but this is not something that you have to trust us. You can kind of look at who else has been doing stuff there. And for the most part, they run it out of the box. It's not like they're running some sort of weird custom version of it. Next up, minority serving institutions. This is so important to our community, that making sure that research computing is really available, lowering the barrier to entry, not just in terms of the clients that use it at the big NSF centers or DOE centers, but also making it easier to administer and make this available locally at a lot of MSIs. And we're very happy to be contributing to that and working with entities there. And then on the right-hand side, obviously private and public academia, a lot of big names there. Sure, there's Ivy League schools, R1s, but there's also R2s, R3s. You name it. Spans the gamut, coast to coast, at least here in the U.S. And then finally, industry. There's a lot of industry folks that are engaged in using. I had mentioned earlier that we are funded by the National Science Foundation. And part of the reason we are funded by the National Science Foundation is because they want us to build this community, provide this. And they measure our success by us being able to report on utilization of on-demand. So, if there's one ask I have of you, please, if we don't know about you and you're using on-demand or exploring it, let us know. You can go to openondemand.org/orgs. There's a list there of ones that we know of, and there's a little contact us button you can click on to let us know if we don't have you on there. But let us know, because that's really what ensures our community is well documented and everything. Okay, have I missed any questions? Because I've noticed
people have asked things, but I think there's
okay
responses too. So I've just
should I walk through some of those real quick? We'll talk about. Let me.
No,
Okay.
really.
Okay. Great. Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the utilities and apps. Remember, on-demand's purpose is really to provide web access to your existing resources. So on-demand itself is not installing these. These need to be installed on your system already. It's just providing that web interface into these things. There's a lot of utilities and apps that are out there. This is only a very small fraction of the ones that we know of, just to give you an idea. You can see we cover the majority of the resource schedulers, so be it Slurm, be it, did I just lose? Something just happened to me. Is everybody still seeing me okay? Can you tell? Okay, we're good?
Yeah,
okay.
I couldn't see the presentation.
Okay, something flashed on my screen, and it was,
like somebody's thumbs up.
yeah, good, thanks. So all the major resource schedulers, Slurm, LSF, PBS Torque, even Kubernetes, things like that. Even if you don't have a resource scheduler and you just want to run it on the same, some beefy node, you can do that. Lots and lots of software here. Some of the more popular ones that I want to point out, we'll talk to a little bit, are Jupyter. Jupyter is by far and large one of the biggest ones that people run under on-demand. And then MATLAB. We have a great relationship with MathWorks. They've done a lot of work to make MATLAB available. And then finally, Visual Studio Code. Lots of people like to utilize that. Okay, I want to spend a few minutes now talking about some success stories and explain. Now that I explained what on-demand is, you haven't seen it yet. And for those of you who haven't seen it, we'll go through the walkthrough, but explain kind of why you might care or some things that's happened here. And let's start here at OSC. I work in the Ohio Supercomputer Center, and we made our first major public release of Open On-Demand around 2016, 17 or so. If you look at our client base there, our client community had about 28 fields of science represented, and last year it was 45. And that's no small part to Open On-Demand, lowering that barrier to entry. I mean, we've got people from fields I never would have imagined using open high performance computing or supercomputing using it now. I mean, horticulture and crop scientists here at Ohio State use us. Linguistics professors, poli-sci folks, you name it, it really spans the gamut. I want to talk about a few specific case studies here. And there's going to be some words that are about to come out of my mouth that a few years ago wouldn't have made any sense to all of us, but they're going to make general good sense here and just shows what happens. So right now, as we're talking at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, there are students in a digital art design class that as part of their classwork are on their iPads with their digitizers, logging into the OSC on-demand instance, connecting to our supercomputer, firing up Stable Diffusion, which is a generative AI app, typing in text prompts. They hit go. What they don't know is behind the scenes, that's firing off to a Kubernetes small partition cluster that we have with some NVIDIA GPUs, time slicing those GPUs, something like 15, 30 seconds later, they get back images from those prompts they can use. Really, I mean, that whole chain of things is amazing. If you think about it, what's happening. There are master's students who are doing their art theses using supercomputers now here in Ohio. This picture you see on the left is actually a still from a video that last spring a student did her thesis with using our resources. And there's all kinds of things you can talk about. This is obviously the professor that leads it in terms of ensuring that their work won't be ingested or stolen by some of these big tech companies that provide other services, the generative AI services, IP protection, all kinds of things there. So you can see more about this story at openondemand.org if you want that. I mentioned Idaho National Lab earlier, and Idaho National Lab did a few years ago a story or a paper where they documented the impact of deploying Open On-Demand at their location on what they have a friction metric. So to them, friction is the amount of time that generally elapses between when somebody creates an account and they do their first job. So they sign up for an account versus actually doing some work on the system. As a direct result of Open On-Demand being available on their system, that metric was reduced by a factor of 19, which means that people at Ohio National Lab time to science 19 times faster, time to engineering, or time to whatever you want to call it, 19 times faster than they were before. Again, lowering that barrier to entry and making it easier for people to use these very powerful resources on there. We've also seen that here in Ohio with classroom stuff. So during the pandemic in particular, a lot of universities went fully virtual and students couldn't access on-campus computer labs anymore. So we and lots of other institutions that had Open On-Demand just were in the right place at the right time and were able to step up and provide virtual computer labs. And we've got some cool stories around that. Last calendar year, we here in Ohio provided resources to over 200 college classes all over the state at something like 40 different universities, something like 8,000 students that basically can just first day of their class, they get an account, they log in, they don't have to worry about, do I have the right client, SSH terminal or X Windows or something like that. is my environment set up the right way? Everybody sees the same thing, standardized, and they can just get to working. And, we do that over and over and over again. Okay, I'm gonna pause again for a second because I see
I think-
we're good.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Like asking about HT Condor support, so unless you know something.
Yeah,
Jeff responded. So.
good. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, we would love for that. We've had interest there. I will just say high level about Condor in general. And be it Path or HEC Condor or what. We have a tremendous amount of interest in making that available. We have no expertise here at OSC, so we don't even know where to start. We don't run it. We don't have it. We're looking for the community to help us there. You'll see, I mentioned earlier about MathWorks and MATLAB making it available. There's things that you're going to see during the demo that Matt's going to give here in a little bit in terms of like Globus and profiles that were contributed by other entities like Globus, Harvard, CSC Finland, things like that. So we're always looking for somebody who might be an expert in that or has some expertise that would be willing to help us out with it there. So, okay, a few more quick stories. I'll talk about remote science. This is a very busy slide. Don't worry about the details on here. But the important thing about this is that Open OnDemand doesn't have to just sit on large clusters. Open OnDemand can also help at the edge. So cryo-EM is a big thing in biomedical fields now, a huge workflow where you've got these cryo-EM machines that are generating ridiculous amounts of data that then needs to be processed. And Open OnDemand can help with that. We can provide interface. So you can see in the very middle of this diagram, Open OnDemand is mentioned twice there as an interface to help with this CryoSpark. There's a consortium of institutions called the Ecosystem for Research Networking, ERN, that has done some pilots and white papers around this type of deployment, where they're showing interfacing with these scientific devices between Open OnDemand and their high-end computing facilities. So speaking a little bit about remote stuff, let's go kind of over the pond. I don't want to be too US centric here. And let's go to Europe and talk about Lumi. So CSC Finland has a system called Lumi, which I keep meaning to look up because they keep changing it, but it's something like number 6 on the top 500 list. It was like number 3 for a while. It's dropped down a little bit. And they have talked a lot about Open OnDemand as the interface to it. It's one of the most powerful supercomputers in the world. CSC Finland even really talks about the fact that the entire nation of Finland, for the most part, from a research standpoint, relies upon these centralized resources, and as such relies upon Open OnDemand to help them. The other thing that CSC Finland kind of they were the first to publicly talk about this. I don't think they're the only one, but Lumi has production quantum computing nodes, so qubit nodes on it. So Open OnDemand is facilitating researcher access to quantum computing, at least at CSC Finland. If I go across the bigger pond to the west of us over to Japan, we can look at Riken and Fugaku, which was for many years #1 on the top 500 list. It runs Open OnDemand as well. But what's most interesting there is Riken has taken upon themselves to hold some workshops. And so they last year actually held a workshop that was on Open OnDemand specific for Japanese researchers and research computing sites. Something like 200 or 300 attendees at this workshop, talking through various workflows and things they've been doing. So really, really cool there, what's happening on that. Okay, that's it for the kind of a high level intro. We're going to get now into the walkthrough that Matt's going to do, but were there any questions or things that we needed to talk about in the chat? Okay, so there was HT's Condor and others. Okay.
That was sort of the only question, I think.
Okay.
Someone commenting that they didn't know much about it, but
yeah,
everything else seems
great. Okay, I think we're just gonna slide this down so that it's in front of Matt now, because same computer. So,
yeah, I'll just leave my audio up. If that's okay.
Yeah. I
That
think that's
sounds
the thing
good.
to do.
Okay, cool. So Hello, everyone. My name's Matt Walton, and for this part of the presentation, we'll be going through the tutorial for OnDemand. So I want to preface this a little bit with how complicated the tutorial is and how much time we have today to go over stuff. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So you can see that there's a URL, openondemand.org/tutorial, and that will take you to a GitHub repository. It's actually currently linking to a repository that's been forked from something that has been used a lot called the HPC toolset. And that tutorial, the HPC toolset is what you see a diagram for on the left. And so to keep all of the complexity of the whole tutorial of the high performance computing toolset out of our vision and just focus on the on-demand part, that is what we're going to do. And the changes I've made are hopefully to help facilitate us focusing on the on-demand side of things. So if you have that repository cloned, you can, from a CLI inside the clone repository, you should be able to build it with a command docker compose build with a flag of no cache. And that's just to verify that it's going to build everything from source, from the repository you got there. And then everything else should just be docker compose up, and that will turn all these containers on. And then you can connect via a web browser to the various ports you see there. Particularly, we're going to be on localhost 3443, as we're going to be connecting to on-demand, and we're not going to be super worried about the other ports or other access we have right now. So it will take a while to download the tutorial. It is pretty large. Like, these are all separate containers. So a little bit, there's like on-demand, and then Slurm CTLD, that's the scheduler process. If you have an HPC center, if you work at one, there's some scheduler process running. It might not be Slurm, but in this example it is. So we're sort of making a generic demonstration of what all this stuff is. And the CPN01 would be the HPC resources your users would be accessing. So if there was a classroom and they wanted to use Jupyter, the executing process of Jupyter would be on one of these CPN nodes, and it would happen because it was scheduled by the controller process that got the info from OnDemand. So so don't worry about following along too exactly in the tutorial. I'm going to kind of jump around and try to show what I can. So as soon as you open up the tutorial, if you get to that, if you get the Docker Compose up working and can get to localhost 3443, you'll probably have to get past some HTTPS things. You might have to accept a certificate that's not valid. And then you will get to a login screen. And this animation is showcasing what you should see there. So when you get to the login screen, eventually this will get back there. The username is HPC admin, and the password is I love Linux. Those are from the other tutorials, so you can use those if you want to in the full HPC tutorial toolset. So I just want to talk about a little what we have here. So you can see the nav bar. Thank you for attending. Some recently used apps. This is just sort of a quick overview of the main menu you get in a pretty default configuration of this. Files, jobs, clusters, interactive apps. I have development mode enabled, so I can see an extra menu. I'll talk more about the profiles in a little bit. There's a message of the day that is configurable. We have some tutorial links, and XDMod isn't set up in when I recorded this, but you could, and the errors would go away. So yeah, that is pretty much the start of it. So let's see, if anyone has any questions or any issues or anything, please feel free to drop them in the chat, or let me know, raise your hand, or just say something and I will stop and we can discuss it if anyone has any questions. So next, I want to discuss and show off the file browser. So this should be a pretty easy next step if you get the tutorial up, because it's right there. So here I opened a text file that was saved. It said welcome to OnDemand. OnDemand has a built-in text viewer, and editor for simple things. So you can access your files, like the data you might submit like to a job, and the data you might receive like after as a job's executing, and view it in that files thing. But if you wanted to, you could also make quick changes, your own things, like just need a little text editor for a file and you don't want to go into a CLI or something, you can do it right here. And you can be certain where you're at, your user, the paths are all there, you can customize it, few options, and yeah, that's just an important aspect and utility that OnDemand provides. And yeah, so Globus. Alan mentioned Globus integration. Globus is a popular file transfer service, and OnDemand has integrated access with it. So from here, you can, that starting page of this animation was the files page from the last one. So from that files page at the top, there's a link that just says Globus. And if you click that Globus link, you will be prompted to log into your account. And if you have one, this is what it'll look like. There are endpoints and data, and you would transfer your files. If you're using Globus, you probably have specific reasons for it. So that's just a demonstration of that. So let's move on. So, okay, this example app. So Alan talked about how there are lots of apps for OnDemand, and one of the apps that OnDemand provides is a shell. So some people, so even though OnDemand is about making access to people easier, like giving a gateway to people who might not have it, some people who might not have it still might want a shell. So we provide that here. You can see if you have the tutorial open, all of this should be there. This you can see the host was front end, and I won't go back on the diagram so that this GIF can keep playing. But if you look in the tutorial infrastructure, the you can find where the host is that this is showing. And yeah, you can do everything there. That is sort of where the OnDemand host, where OnDemand was installed. So that would be the OnDemand host. So yeah, go to the next one. So another example application. So the shell is neat and things, but you might not need to go through all the trouble of setting up OnDemand just to get to a shell. So let's see if, so let's talk about virtual desktops. Virtual desktops are really important. Alan mentioned the classrooms. That's a huge application. I mean, there are many, many reasons why people would want virtual desktops provisioned on high performance computing resources. And I think that this makes it super easy and like clear what's happening and how to do it. So on the left is the setup for the desktop, turning it on, configuring the details, which are also configurable. So the specifics of the HPC desktop app are the options that you choose when you submit. So we can pick the number of hours, the number of nodes, but you could make that different. You could change it to have different, like maybe the type of node or something. Maybe you want a desktop that's got certain, like a certain architecture or something. You could make it things very specific. Or you could leave them very general and let people decide on their own. If the researchers have large varying needs, then that's probably a good idea. And on the right, you can see what comes up in your web browser after you connect to it. So you would click on the desktop and it would launch what is on the right. And yeah, that would be your whole desktop. You could then connect to anything else, use your HPC resources just like you did before. And if you open a terminal, you can see that it's on the CPN01 host. So if you're following along with the tutorial, that is one of the hosts. So the desktop, this form is submitted, and the scheduler, the Slurm controller daemon in the diagram, receives that request and eventually schedules your job for the HPC thing. It may, for the HPC desktop, and after it's scheduled and started, then it will return the data to OnDemand and it's in your browser. And all of that should be easy to do. You shouldn't have to do anything else in the tutorial to get that demonstration going. So yeah, I wanted to talk about Jupyter for a minute. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in the customization thing. So Jupyter is a really popular app, and you can see on the left all the customizations, a little bit of what I mentioned before. So large memory, GPU enabled, number of cores, app Jupyter version. So you can configure all sorts of specific things you want access for. And more than that, you could configure one Jupyter app to be for people you wanted to have a lot of granular choices for, and another Jupyter app for people you wanted to have less choices. So for classroom Jupyter, you might not want students who are using Stable Diffusion to have to pick all of that stuff. So it might be easier to configure it for with less options, with fewer options. And yeah, that's I think a good example of how apps in general work, and a really popular use case of a really popular app. So cool. So that's sort of the parts of the tutorial that I wanted to walk through. The customization parts are going to diverge from what the tutorial specifies a little bit, because the tutorial is very in-depth, and there are lots of customizations, and I want to try to cover stuff generally and specifically. So if you have any questions about specific things, again, feel free to ask, and if not, that is cool too. So profiles. Profiles are an option that OnDemand offers, so you can easily customize your stuff. So there are lots of ways to customize OnDemand, but profiles make it simple, and that is really great, I think. So here's OnDemand, a gray bar. Thank you for attending the tutorial. But on the top right, I have a little button that said chemistry, and as it loads, settings updated, things change. The navbar menu now has different drop-down menus. There's a link straight to Jupyter. The text is changed. The message of the day has been reordered. So the files app's still the same. The clusters could be different. You could have a different list of things. You could change what is in the drop-downs, as well as what the elements in the navbar are. And you can also add a page. You could just add a chemistry notes page for people to reference if they wanted to. And I think this is a cool example of you kind of have to think about what you want the profile to be, but if you can come up with that, you can really see how easy it would be to make it super useful for specific cases. So here's another example that OSC has done, called system status. So at OSC, we use Grafana to aggregate and make graphs out of the data we collect from our clusters. So we added a page called system status that links to this dashboard with our clusters and some Grafana data. And when you click into any of the clusters, you get it's a link to more Grafana info. And yeah, so that's a custom thing that OSC did, but it's also totally, so if your center collected metrics and maybe if they didn't even use them through Grafana, if they had them through some other way, you could display them and present them and know which people saw through the customization of the OnDemand interface. Okay, so there's a lot of customization, and so I just want to briefly summarize some of the major things. So if you look at the two pictures, there's kind of the top left one's the one that you'll get if you start up the tutorial. You just Docker compose up, and that don't do anything. Got the gray bar, the open OnDemand little logo there, and a little message saying thanks. But it also has a message of the day that's pre-configured. But in the other one, you see we got the blue, we got colors, we got branding, the Ohio Supercomputer logo right there. Got a little thing about OnDemand again. The recently used apps can be configured. Those were just two that I had used recently. And there's if you look at the right on the OSC one, there's looking for classroom. So there's OSC OnDemand, and there's classroom OnDemand, and you could get to the classroom apps that way. Yeah, so I just wanted to point this out and put this slide up here for some other things, and also upload and download limits for using the Files app. So you could limit like file uploads and downloads. And here's the more specific example of Jupyter. So on the left is a Jupyter app in OSC OnDemand, and on the right is a Jupyter app in Classroom OnDemand. So on the left, you see all the big complicated pick a cluster project. Do you want Jupyter Lab or Notebook? I don't think it matters anymore. The number of hours, the node type, cores. But if you're a student, maybe none of that matters, and you just want like small, medium, or large for an amount of time. And I think that's a really cool thing. Like two applications, two different people, but like Jupyter is what they're using, and OnDemand is how they're getting access to it. More customization. So this is just, again, just to sort of show you what can be possible. The first one was OSC's instance. The second one is Awesome. They do simulations for lots of stuff. They are, yeah, they do a lot of cool stuff, and they have a totally different customization than OSC's OnDemand and then Classroom OnDemand does. And I think that those differences are really interesting because they show how you can customize it and brand it for yourself and still have all the functionality that is there. And so I wanted to talk about the security of OnDemand because that's kind of my job, and I know a lot of people have questions about it. So I want to specify that OnDemand is an authentication consumer, and that's kind of a weird thing to say. It doesn't mean that in specifically like the OpenAuth or like the security access like meaning of that, but you do have to have a provider of authentication data to coordinate with OnDemand to get authentication set up. And it also relies on the host's operating system for access to a network file system. There are some good diagrams in our documentation that you can get to if you go not all the way to that link, but just to the OD documentation part. And oh no. All right, so yeah. Yeah, the networked file system is really important because OnDemand isn't an API. It uses a lot of operating system utilities to do what it does, to launch the resource, to schedule the job. It has to use the scheduler. So that is a thing to keep in mind, I guess, that you have to make sure OnDemand has access it needs and that access is secure. And so yeah, install and configure OnDemand once for each HPC scheduler process whose access for the authorized users of the network file system you'd like to manage. So that's a probably too complicated way to say that maybe one instance of OnDemand for everything isn't what you want. Maybe you want OSC OnDemand, Classroom OnDemand, and Awesome OnDemand, and like all these different things because those different use cases have like different resources attached to them, and that's how your center is organized or whatever. Or really, it's very open. So I just want you to think about how you could apply it to whatever your projects are. And I know the architecture is kind of complicated, so if anyone's interested, I kind of wanted to just put some arrows to make things make sense. So if you have some HPC resource and you want to get it to someone's browser, OnDemand can help do that. And it does it through an Apache front end. So first, the user connects to Apache, and then each user has their own Nginx process that communicates with the scheduler. And the scheduler then schedules the submitted data to be executed on the resource, and then whatever that execution does, whether it's communicate with Nginx or communicate with the browser or just communicate with Nginx and go back to the resource or go back to the scheduler, this is sort of the I think a good flow of data to keep in mind if you want to try to figure out what's going on in the examples at least. And yeah, so I just sort of try to make these points that securing on-demand deployments requires consideration of all installations and customizations relevant to an HPC center services. So it's more than just like how secure is on-demand, but how are you using on-demand securely, or are you using it to like you have to make sure you don't provide the resources you have to people you don't want to, basically. And on-demand can help some, but there is also some responsibility on the deployment to ensure their security. And like Alan said, there are lots of people who've found secure ways to deploy stuff. Lots of people have changed some things on their own. We can talk on Discourse if you have questions or want to discuss anything else about security. So yeah, I think that is pretty much what I had to show and talk to everyone about. So yeah, thank you. And if anyone has any questions or anything, please let me know in the chat, or feel free to reach out to us on Discourse or Slack or me and via an email or anything. So thank you. I think Julie might be doing the next part of this.
Yes, I'm gonna take over the screen if you don't mind. So let me see if I can, if you could unshare your screen, then I'll share mine.
Okay, so, all right, let's make sure this works. Okay. Awesome.
Oh dear, it took me all the way back to the beginning. I was being very clever by being at the right page, but that didn't do what I expected it to do. I apologize. Oh goodness. Let me try this again. All right, let's go back to you sharing. Sorry, Matt, this is not being helpful right now. And I'll just ask you to move the slides.
Okay. Let me figure out how to do that. Is it presenting again? So I want to present, but each one of the slides, but
Yeah, somehow we lost the.
she told me to stop
Oh, well, there we go.
doing it, and then yeah.
Yeah, how about that?
Okay, is that
Yeah.
working? Cool.
Hold on, sorry. Out of that window. Thank you. I apologize for that little hiccup there, everybody. I'm Julie Ma, and I am a co-PI on several of the Open On-Demand grants, and kind of responsible for engaging with the community. So we wanted to just give you a quick summary of several of the things that both Alan and Matt have already mentioned about ways to reach us. Next slide, please. So first and foremost, we have a Discourse instance, which is basically a Q&A platform, very similar to Stack Exchange. So if you go to openondemand.org/discourse, it will bring up this Q&A platform. And there's a variety of categories, but if you need immediate help with something, you can see there's a Get Help category, and you can click on that and then just post your question. We have developers watching the on-demand discourse during business hours, and so you'll usually get a pretty quick response. And one of the things we really like about Discourse is that these answers are also available from our Discourse site. So if you before you even post a question, you can first search to see if somebody else has already posted a similar topic. And similarly, if they haven't, then whatever you post will be there for the next person that might run into the same issue. So this is a very important way that we communicate with the community, and highly recommend that you check out our Discourse and hopefully sign up and start interacting with it. Next slide. A second thing that's really important is to get updates from us regarding new releases or some of the community calls that I'll be talking about in a moment. And you can sign up for our newsletter, which is supported by Constant Contact. So if you click on this QR code, or if you go to the URL that's at the bottom right-hand corner, it's a very simple sign-up screen that then will put you into our database, and then you will get updates from us on a regular basis. And if you decide that it's too much, you can also unsubscribe on any of the updates. But it's a way that we try to be very consistent about getting information out to the community about events and information about Open On Demand. So would really welcome your participation. Next slide, please. On our website, openondemand.org, at the resources tab, we have a variety of videos. We have a video archive of basically every presentation that we've ever given, for which we have a recording, as well as papers and the presentation slides. And there's also a number of case studies. So all of these are available on the OnDemand website, and are a great resource to the community to learn about what we're doing and also what other folks have been doing with Open On Demand. So it's a great resource to check out, and hope that you'll do so. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, we have a number of community events that happen monthly. We have a tips and tricks call, which is a community organized event. It's actually not even hosted by the Open On Demand team. It's hosted by the University of Utah at present. And it's an opportunity for the community to meet once a month and share tips and tricks about how to use Open On Demand. So we usually engage a speaker that can talk about their particular customization, something interesting that they did with Open On Demand. Some of the examples that Alan showed earlier have been presented on on the tips and tricks call. And it's also an opportunity for people to ask questions and exchange information. It's a wonderful series. It takes place on the first Thursday of every month. So actually the next one is next Thursday at 1 p.m. and a great way to meet other folks that are also using Open On Demand. The second call that we host every month is our open office hours. This is an opportunity to speak directly with our developers on a monthly basis, where you can report a bug, you can advocate for a fix for a bug, you can show us things that you've done that might be interesting for new features that we would want to incorporate into the main Open On Demand code. And it's really a wonderful call. We have representation from people in Europe. Occasionally someone from Japan shows up. We have a lot of different universities, DoD, NIH people. So it's a rotating cast of characters, but always a really lively conversation. And we welcome other folks to join us wherever you are in your on-demand journey. So if you're just getting started and trying to figure out something that isn't quite clear in our documentation, or you just want somebody to walk through documentation, pretty much any question is open and fair game, and we really enjoy this event. So both of these events are on our website under events. They're also, if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get a notification a day before the call, just reminding you that it's taking place. Next slide, please. We've also done a lot of work to try and organize our GitHub issues so that the community can both view the live roadmap and also provide some input. So if you go to openondemand.org, you'll see issues and how we're looking at them right now, issues that have been reviewed and need to be scheduled, issues that have been reviewed and are already scheduled, and et cetera. And it's a really, it's an open source project, so we try to have everything out there in the open. Always always happy to take input from the community through GitHub issues as well. Next slide. One thing that we've done with our GitHub issues is try to make it easy for the community to get involved with the development of Open On Demand. I think you might have seen earlier with the question about HTC Condor, it was kind of funny because I responded in the chat and Alan said almost exactly the same thing that I said, which is that this is an example of something that we don't have a lot of experience with, and so we would love to have the community, somebody in the community with expertise in an issue and interest to help us with this issue, to bring it to the community faster. On the other hand, if you're just interested in contributing to Open On-Demand in some manner, and you don't necessarily understand the entire system, what our dev team has done is gone through our open GitHub issues and identified issues that would be good first issues. So issues that you can contribute that don't necessarily need a complete understanding of the entire stack and the system, but would still be incredibly beneficial to the community if they get addressed in a timely manner. So if you're interested in participating in that way, you can go to our GitHub repo, navigate to issues, and then navigate to labels and search for the good first issue label. And you'll see a set of issues that have been identified that fall into that category. It's a good way to get your feet wet. And then we hope that we'll continue to engage and contribute to the Open On-Demand project, because that's one of the things that we really want is to have the community participate with us in the development of this platform that's, really, as Alan said, been deployed all over the world, almost 2,000 sites. And we want it to continue, the community to continue to help us with growing it to meet the needs of the community. Next slide. So just in summary, we have a variety of ways to reach us: the discourse, our GitHub repo. We also have a Slack space that you can get to through openondemand.org/Slack. And we also have the Constant Contact newsletter. So I think what we're trying to say here is that we're here and we really appreciate the participation of the community, and we really hope to engage with you more through any of these mechanisms. So I think that was the last slide. And so now I can open this up to questions for Alan or Matt or myself. We really appreciate the opportunity to present here today and appreciate all of your attention to our tutorial.